George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. And we have a brother here who's going to talk to us about the topic that we don't hear a lot discussed in our community, at least from this perspective. We're pleased to be joined by Chavez Carter, Dr. Chavez Carter, CEO of Essential Defense Solutions. He's an instructor for the Black Lions Gun Club and a member of the National African American Gun Association. He's from Summit, Mississippi.
That's right. That's right. You said it right too, man.
I said it right.
You know somebody grandmama.
I want to talk to you about Mississippi because there's a lot there. He got his BS from Alcorn State and received a PhD at Cornell University in immunology and infectious disease. He now lives in Tampa working in the pharmaceutical industry. And there's one more thing that we need to know about Brother Chavez Carter.
Talk to him.
What else we need to know about you, brother?
Oh, man, you got to know a part of the greatest fraternity that there's ever been. Omega Psi Phi to the day I die.
Holla at your boy. Right? We'll make sure we get that in. Oh, right.
That's
For the people in the back that didn't know. Team is in the house and ready. But so you know, one of the things I wanted to say something about Mississippi. I said it the way they said. Not Mississippi the way they said. You know, we hear so much about Mississippi on the negative side, for real, right? Like for real, lowest this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. The legislator, one of the last to remove the Confederate symbol. If they did they do it finally? And
you know what? They've put it towards a vote. It's pulled down, but it's still like the legality of it. It's still has to vote.
And then wasn't the last state to ratify slavery? All of that, right? Like to ratify the end of slavery, right?
Well, not just to ratify the end of slavery, to ratify making lynching illegal. That probably happened about 6 years ago.
Right.
Maybe.
So, but despite all of that, when you meet somebody black from Mississippi, mm-hmm. there's so much pride. People from Mississippi love Mississippi.
That's right.
I mean, despite all of that, there's such a pride. Talk to me a little bit about that before we get into the business at hand.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I said, I'm born and raised in Summit, Mississippi. And the thing about people from Mississippi is that, especially Black people from Mississippi, is such a sense of community there. Like when they talk about, communities where people don't leave their door locked, right? Mm-hmm. Or I give you one of my favorite examples is we survived Hurricane Katrina. Right. And when people think of Hurricane Katrina, the first thing that comes up is New Orleans, right?
Right.
Well, fun fact, Hurricane Katrina was literally 60 miles from New Orleans.
Right.
The eye of the hurricane never went through New Orleans, right? Infrastructure and logistics is what doomed New Orleans, not the actual hurricane.
Right. People don't realize that. Right.
People don't realize that. But the actual hurricane came right up through Mississippi. And it was a time where I've never been more proud to be from my neighborhood and be where I'm from, because during all that time, the thing in Mississippi is, people have land, people have gardens, right? But it's more of a communal thing where people really care about the neighborhood. Like my dad, who was actually the first Black mayor in Pike County, Summit, Mississippi, we get together in the mornings with our neighbors to make sure that all of the elderly had food. So before we ate, because luckily it happened around Labor Day, which means that everybody was stocked up on charcoals, propane tanks, so we were able to, because we didn't have power for the first 26, 27 days, right? So we literally living off of charcoal, propane tanks, but everybody took care of everybody, right? If we were grilling or, we'd make sure we knock on the door like, hey, y'all got something, y'all good? Are the kids have food? Like I said, I had an Aunt Bernice, I had a couple other aunts, just other elders in the community. Those folks got taken care of first, and also, again, it's a place where we grew a significant portion of our own food. We've always had a garden, how, I got up north, I always say, and organic was really popular, right? And we never thought of it, at least my household never thought of it as organic. I'm sitting there like, y'all paying that much for some peas? I got so tired of peas and, certain things. But, my dad grew enough in his garden where it wasn't just for his family. We'd go to church and he'd have 5-gallon buckets of produce. He'd have baskets of produce and he let down the back door of the station wagon, and people just came up and people ate. People take care, especially Black folks, they take care of that. But also, the thing people don't really realize is it's a hard argument to have, but the segregation led to a necessity and led to part independence, and where people weren't relying on other communities to take care of their communities. Meaning that in the Black community, if you wanted, some meat, you went to the butcher, right? But you had a Black butcher. You wanted somebody to take care of your car, you went to the mechanic. It's a Black mechanic. Whether it's shoe shine, whether it's the doctors, the lawyers, your dentist, it's all self-contained. And because segregation lasted a lot longer and stronger in places like Mississippi, that independence also was a lot longer and stronger. Another example I tell people is, they'll say, Mississippi is where it is on education, right?
Right.
But I'd argue that I use my kind of school district as an example, because of you had individuals that were intelligent enough to teach on a collegiate level. You had people that were intelligent enough that would have and should have went on and got masters and PhDs. Because of the limited opportunities, they're your school teachers, right? They're your third grade teachers who, has the intelligence and is eloquent enough to be teaching at the junior college. They're not hiring them. So you have a concentration of overtrained educators. And, I look at my senior class and a lot of individuals that came from where I come from who are now PhDs, and they got the PhDs from Ivy League schools, from Penn State, from Duke, from Harvard, from Yale, from Boston College. It's these top colleges from little bitty Summit, Mississippi, Pike County, and, all over because of...
Go ahead.
No, because of, and my father, another example, he ended up getting 2 masters during a time where, a brother in Mississippi getting a master's was not common.
And so we're judgmental, right? Because we look at Mississippi, because I was in Oxford, Mississippi, right? Ole Miss, and we went there, and all these Confederate monuments at that time. We went to Ole Miss. They had the big Confederate monument in the middle of the campus, and they didn't have anything at that time. They didn't have any tribute to James Meredith. They do now. They had a picture, but they didn't have any monument, and they finally did dedicate James Meredith, the first African-American to integrate Ole Miss back in 1962, I believe. And so we judge it. We're like, oh man, Mississippi is so this and this and that. And you're saying, well, there's another side to it, is what I'm hearing you say. And
there's definitely another side to it. And there's a lot of pride in there.
Yeah, a lot of pride in there. And we could go on about that so we're supposed to be talking about gun owners, but because you're from Mississippi,
you talk about my people.
Right, I'm talking about your people. So now you got to, but like the outsider would say, but y'all lived under such oppression. How could you do it? Why did you do it? That's what people will say, right? Like, why didn't you just get up and go? You said, why should I? Right? Like this. Yeah. That's what people are trying to understand. Like, well, damn, how y'all put up with that sort of living under in our perception of it? How y'all put up with that?
Well, the thing of it this way as well is you do have individuals that, once they get the opportunity, they leave. And the thing about oppression is, most people that are oppressed either don't know they're oppressed or don't know that they can get out.
Right.
Because it's systems. And I will say the systems in Mississippi run deep. Systems of oppression are run deep. But, the people that survive, and I say survive, are very resilient. Yeah. And also ownership, and I keep going back to ownership, is where I'm from in my family. When people pass on or people accumulate, they accumulate land, right? There are more people and more landowners, whether it's agricultural or whether it's just like, I had land in my name by the time I was a teenager, right? So, and when your elders pass on, the big thing is for them to accumulate certain things. So for them to work their entire life to accumulate property, to accumulate certain assets, and then say, okay, well, you can, I'll give this up and go somewhere else. It's tough. But also you have people like, and I'm using my family example, like my grandfather. My grandfather, born and raised in Mississippi, and he had an entrepreneurial spirit, and he knew that, the prices in Mississippi are a lot lower for when it comes to property, when it comes to housing, when it comes to just business. So he'd work in the steel mills, for a season or for a year or two, bring his family up there, then come down to Mississippi, buy a property. He moved his family up to Milwaukee, lived in Milwaukee and Kenosha area, right? And worked in those plants and would accumulate businesses there, sell it, take that money, come down to Mississippi and buy more property, buy more land. And, he was able to do this until he finally moved his family down to Mississippi. And by the time he moved to Mississippi, he had a 30-acre, place where, he had a pond where he lived, and it was on, the side of town that they don't really, they really didn't let us, but his last name was Stovall. So he was smart enough to have somebody else. He paid a white guy,
yes,
to go to the bank as Robert Stovall, sign the paperwork, and once it's all signed up, he took over the property, right? And to this day, he's, it's not very many brothers over there, not to say like he moved to the community to move out of the community, but, is when you want the cherry on top, he was able to get that, by entrepreneurial spirit, and was illiterate, functionally illiterate, but
right.
he knew business, he learned business. So people, they will leave, but they'll leave, find opportunities, and they'll say, you know what? I can buy land, I can buy property, I can, because he owned several businesses, and operated several businesses, but it was cheaper to do in Mississippi.
So we're talking to Chavez Carter. He is with the National African American Gun Association and he's CEO of Essential Defense Solutions. So there's a lot I can talk to you about because you also got your PhD at Cornell and you're a brother that's into infectious disease. All right. I guess I now have opened the door to talk about COVID. Say something about that, and then we'll get to the guns, right?
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you want to, so I'm just inviting you to say something about COVID since this is what part of what you study or what you know.
Well, absolutely. Well, yeah, my background is in infectious diseases. So whether it's bacterial, whether it's viral, or, what we see now with COVID. And I think, the U.S. has kind of done itself a disservice, in some of the approaches that we've done where, we've not taken it as serious, right? And, we'll look at certain information and that's the dangerous thing. Enough information to be dangerous, but not enough to know you don't know what you really don't know. Right. And even, the people at the CDC and people that are studying this are still developing their concepts on, how this disease works and where it is. Because if you remember, at first, it was, no mask because it's not airborne.
Right.
By February, they were saying, you know what, we were wrong. And when the last time you heard the CDC or you heard from the, a national basis, like, hey, we were wrong about this, now let's wear masks, right? And, you see individuals that, refuse to follow this. And the problem is, if you just look from broadly, right, the countries that are getting back to some form of normalcy, right, has committed to one or two strategies. They've either committed to, we're going to quarantine, we're going to fully quarantine. Nobody's going anywhere. We're going to lock it down, right? And then in a certain amount of time, it'll pass, right? Or we're not going to really quarantine and we're going to kind of let the strongest survive, right? Mm-hmm. It's two ways that's been fairly successful. The way that hasn't been successful is by doing a little bit of both.
Right. And
unfortunately, in the U.S., we've done a little bit of both. We've not committed to a singular strategy that, we've seen work for, many other nations. So, in the grand scheme of things, I wish whatever we commit to, I wish, we take it serious enough to know that, you don't have to be necessarily just elderly, right? You don't have to necessarily be, most of the people, now I will say most of the people would have, certain conditions or underlying conditions. And COVID has honestly, because Mississippi was hit very hard with COVID, but also, people that might not know they have certain underlying conditions. So it's always silver linings in this. And it's kind of really made us kind of look internally at, where is my health really?
Right.
Right. But it's something that I just think you have to take it serious, even if, you're not going to, because you quarantine in your house and nobody else doing it, you're going to drive yourself crazy. But taking the necessary precautions, and also keeping people that may be at risk, not being selfish and saying, I know I want to go see auntie, I got aunts I want to see. I got people, that are in nursing homes that I would love to go see. But you have to call them. You have to FaceTime them, or something. You have to do something very, because you might be okay, right? But it could put a severe strain on those that we know can and are susceptible. I think I might have missed you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was my fault. So let's talk about the subject at hand, which is the legacy of African American gun ownership, something that we may not be as familiar with. You started a business training people to be licensed gun owners.
Yeah.
So what don't we know about it, and who's are we buying guns now, and how long have we been doing it, and what have you seen from your experience, and why did you decide to be a part of the National African American Gun Owners Association, who says that their goal is to educate and train our community in the rich legacy of gun ownership of African Americans? They even issued a statement on George Floyd, on Arbery, which they talked about holding people accountable, even as they sort of skirted around the issue of whether we should get guns off the streets, which is a whole other thing. But let's talk about what you're seeing and why you started this business and this legacy of African American gun ownership. That's about 69 questions in one. So
hey, man, we'll knock all of them out. So
Okay.
first, I give you my background in gun ownership. Again, being from rural Mississippi, my father had guns, several, and they were all throughout the house. They were he had shotguns, pistols, and my dad's old school pops, where if he say something, he mean it. So I never touched his, and I knew where every gun was in the house by the time I was at least 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also never picked up his chainsaw. I never picked up his axe. I never picked up his knife. I never grabbed the keys and drove the car out of the driveway either, right? So, he built and instilled that sense of, this is his stuff, don't touch it, right? But also what he did for us is we started out with BB guns, what's the Christmas Story, like you shoot your eye. How old was that kid? Like 9?
9.
8, 9, exactly. Right. That's about the time I got my BB gun. Right, so we started with BB guns, and then from there we had pellet guns, then air rifles. And I got my first rifle, probably like 14-ish, somewhere around there. But again, it's rural. We hunt and we clean, skin, and process everything that we shoot. Matter of fact, that was the rule to keep us from shooting birds and squirrels and everything else in the neighborhoods. Like, look, catch you shooting it. If you shoot it, you hit it, I'm gonna make you skin it and eat it. So kept us from hitting the cats. But we learned gun ownership, gun safety at a very early age, because the safety part, we talk about the ownership, but the safety part, I think, is the most essential. Because just like anything else, if I picked up my drill, I can injure myself or someone else, easily, without the proper technique and without the proper knowledge. I think one of the major problems when it comes to just the discussion of Black gun ownership is the stigma that comes around it, that kind of swirls around it. And it's not just externally, it's internally. Even in our own communities, is the stigma.
Right, and so let me just offer a quick example, right?
Sure.
The idea, let's look at all of these police shootings, right? The idea of, or the thought of, a Black man having a gun without evidence of it is enough to shoot and kill. Exactly. A white man walking down the street with a gun gets to leave that area, go across with the gun in his hand. The law enforcement lets that guy go by, and then you have your president and all of these other conservative people supporting this dude,
Oh yeah.
right? So
He's raised $500,000 in less than
right,
a week.
right. So it's even the thought of what is it? What did they say? This Paul Jacob Blake. He was. We don't know what he was going to do with the man that had the gun and shot and killed 2 people.
Yep.
Gets to go home and sleep in his own bed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and not only that is, the Dylan Ruth and other examples, where they usually apprehend these shooters.
Right. And recently, right, another white dude, he shot 2 people, and took him into custody.
Exactly. They usually take these active shooters into custody.
Yeah.
But we don't usually get the benefit of the doubt.
I'm sorry, and I digress. That was a digression.
I mean, it's an essential part of the conversation, right?
Okay.
And it goes back and it has its roots in just the criminalization of Black men, right? And the stigma of a Black man with a gun, right? It's always a funny conversation with myself, when people that really know me and people that know me in passing, the people that kind of know me in passing, they're like, oh well, aren't you an Ivy League grad and don't you got a PhD and you're doing well for yourself? And man, I was on your Instagram page and I saw like X amount of guns out there and you got your military stuff on, and like I'm surprised. And I always get a kick out of it because they're not expecting the narrative of and breaking the normalization, just normalizing Black gun ownership, because at first I was like, man, do I put this up? I got a job, I got blah, blah, blah. And after a while, the narrative from NAGA, actually it really inspired me to not only, make sure I'm training other individuals and getting myself together, but I'm putting out just what it is. I mean? It's not creating a narrative. It's just letting people, catch a window of the whole process. Like, hey, yes, I'm a doctor, I'm highly educated, but man, I shoot almost every weekend. And I'm active, and probably a little bit more than that, but also train people. And I'll say, unfortunately, one of the great inspirers of action is fear, right? Honestly, we kind of see it from some of the national conventions that's come through, political national conventions, and the way they rile up a base, right, is to tell you what they're going to take away.
White folk, but go ahead.
Is to tell you how this is going to change your life, and these people that are not you are going to come in and change.
I'll give you more direct language. The suburbs will be invaded. That was the language that was used. Okay, let's tell it.
Yeah, so it's fear that galvanizes action out of individuals, and I will say part of that, just be transparent, is what got me to do significantly more training what I was doing, because I was a gun owner and I was trained all my life in safety, right? But in the Charleston incident, right? And, and not just the shooting, but the aftermath when you saw those guys with the tiki torches, right? Khaki pants, tiki torches, and, those guys didn't scare me at all, right? I'm hard pressed to get scared, but I will get concerned. But, you see them parading, with the tiki torches, khaki pants, and, they want their America back. And, and as the news cameras pan, you see, the guys with the SWAT vest, with the bulletproof vests, knee pads on, with the ARs, AKs, stuff like that. And I was like, why is the SWAT team protecting these guys? And then they pan over to the actual police. And it's like, well, who are the guys in the back? Well, of course, that's not the SWAT team. That's the militia. It's a difference. So, I'm, as I won't say a competitive person, but, it just brought the concern that, it brought back some other memories from being at home, right? And it kind of connected some of the other dots. It's like, man, there's people out here that are willing to put it all on the line for things I believe completely against. Who's out here training and who's out here, willing to put it all on the line for the folks that look like me, right?
And so you started Essential Defense Solutions,
I did.
LLC, right?
LLC, that's right.
And so you told me that your biggest customer would surprise people, and who is that customer?
Black women. So in the past 6 months, I think Black Enterprise put out a article that said that out of 100% of gun sales, right, and we're talking about right around 4 million gun sales because of the pandemic as well as some of the social things that's going on, gun sales have increased in some areas by 700%. It's almost, I would say impossible, but it's really, really, really hard to even get ammunition. You can buy a gun, you almost can't even find ammunition for it. So, it's increased exponentially over the nation. But out of that 100% of gun sales in the past 6 months, for the first time, 60% of that 100 are African Americans.
Wow.
And of that 60%, 40% are African American female.
Wow.
So the largest.
What are they saying when they come to you to get training? What are you hearing?
Well, they buy it. They buy it because, mostly, one of the things that the pandemic has kind of shown us or taken the veil off is when things get to their worst, right? What we want in this society is to be able to call the police and the police get there in a timely fashion, right? I have some of my best friends, people that were in my wedding, are officers, whether in Dallas, whether in Mississippi, some of my best friends are officers, frat brothers, right? And the thing that they'll let you know is even in the best case scenario, if they can get there within 8 to 10 minutes, that's fantastic. But what are you going to do in that 8 to 10 minutes? Now, during the pandemic, that 8 to 10 minutes could now be 30 to 40 minutes because right. they're just spread so thin. And I can't remember exactly which town. It was a major city in Texas. And during the pandemic where they were stretched to complete capacity, the sheriff got on TV and let them know that, hey, for petty crimes, theft, and stuff like that, we're not going to be able to get to because we're handling X, Y, and Z. They have to prioritize. So what they're telling you is, for theft can be a very scary situation. And if the police are not coming to that, or they're at such a capacity that they can't respond in a timely fashion, I tell everybody that you are your first line of defense. Mm. So you are your first responder.
Okay. So how do you? So are you saying that more Black folks should own guns, and then how do you juxtapose that with calls for gun reform and better screening and better waiting times and all of that when it comes to gun purchases, right? Because people will say, well, we got too many guns on the streets. Well, those aren't necessarily legal guns, are they, right? And so how do you consciously, because you're a conscious brother.
I am very.
Yeah. How do you consciously promote, right? How do you consciously promote gun ownership at the same time as you also understand the communities or where a lot of Black folk line up as well around gun reform because of the impact it's having on our communities? So, or are they not the same thing as in your view?
Well, let's jump into the first part of that. I like Malcolm X, believe that every household should have some protection. Okay. Malcolm X, vehemently said that, you should, and I think it was a Winchester. At the time, it was the state-of-the-art gun. I think it's
right.
Or Remington and Winchester. But anyway, what he's saying is you should have the state-of-the-art gun for your protection, period. Mm-hmm. So I think every household should have some type of protection because, again, if we knew when we would get robbed or be in certain situations where we needed it, then they, the robbers don't call you and let you know, can I get Thursday or Friday? Right. But even outside of that, there's so much other aspects to gun ownership than just the worst case scenarios. I've gotten into competitive shooting, 3-gun, it's like I said, I'm at the range almost once a week now,
Right.
sometimes more. So the recreation part is a great aspect of it. And then, like I own a business. I own a business training other people on, responsible gun ownership. I also teach courses and enabled to get people their concealed and carry licenses. So this is outside of the house. So this is, whether you're doing security or you just want something on you from day to day, everyday carry. But the other aspect of, how do we constantly promote, gun ownership, and how we as Black people, just being honest, stand on that. I use the example of the, unfortunately, a lot of legislation, but specifically, let's look at, the drug laws, the war on drugs, right?
Right.
Now, in the 90s, after the crack epidemic and stuff like that, we, our pastors, our communities, we were on the front lines yelling and begging, like, hey, we have to have some reform for the drugs, right? And in theory, it's a noble response because our communities were being sacked, by crack, by all these different things that affecting us. And again, whether democratic or, just civically, the Black community, we're on the outcry of we need to do something and we need legislation to do that. And that war on drugs turned into mass incarceration.
Yes, it did.
And it goes directly to this thing. When they put together these laws, which we helped push, right? And we help writing and we're involved in the process. It's not always the laws, it's how do they enforce those laws? Because I'm telling you this, if they enforce those same drug laws across the 50 states of America, we'd be looking at a different demographic in jail, right? It wouldn't just disproportionately affect the Black and the brown. So when we take this back and I'm bringing it back to the gun laws, when these gun laws come into effect, where do we believe that they're going to enforce it? If they've
here we go. Yes.
If they've over-enforced the drug laws, if they've over-enforced, some of these other county, whether it's local, whether it's national, whenever there is, even with some of the older gun laws, stuff like that, where are they enforcing them? And where are they over-enforcing them? Even when it comes to policing is something that we all feel is essential. It's the over-policing. And what communities do we believe are going to get hit first when they look for drugs? And not to stand on the soapbox, but I'm being very honest. Cornell's not the only school I've been to. Penn State. But also, I'd road. The kids. I'd road trip from school to school. So I had experience at HBCUs, at big state schools, as well as Ivy League. I'm gonna tell you this: I've never seen more drugs in my life.
You ain't lied about that. You have not lied about that.
I've never seen more drugs in my life until I started going to these big schools. And like I said, not schools I go to, but period. You know what I mean? I've never seen, just be honest, I've never seen coke. I've never seen drugs, right? I've been in Black communities all my life, right? I know where Pookie and them stay. I know whatever we could think of a stereotypical, the hood, the ghetto, blah, 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 right? Brother got a couple things of weed over there. I've never seen drugs, so I say that to say, if the laws that we help push were enforced equally across the board for everybody, we wouldn't see the mass incarceration. So, and I take that right back to, for the gun laws, when this stuff gets put in, where do you think they're going first? Because as somebody that, I live in Tampa now, I'm in the suburbs. Guess what? I have more people in this cul-de-sac and all over in these communities, and a lot of my customers, stuff like that, they're more retirees and plumbers and blue collar workers with 13, 14, 15, 20, 25 ARs, pistols, AKs, you name it. There's more guns in the suburbs and in Kansas And in Ohio and in, in West Virginia, I mean, they buy ammo by the pallet,
Mm.
There are more guns, proportionally, in the non-urban communities. It's just, we hear about Chicago, we hear about, New Orleans, we hear about some of these, these communities that, they're getting guns shipped there. How many folks in Chicago you think are going to the gun store and getting their AK-47?
They ain't going to the gun store.
So if I could put every restriction on earth on AK-47s, if the people that we're really trying to, and I just use that example, right? Because there's way more other gun crimes than it is in Chicago. But they're not going to the gun store, doing a background check, in order to get their guns. So the people that we're restricting and the people that we're putting more, more laws in place for aren't the target audience, but also as a Black community, we're behind when it comes to gun ownership. Just proportionately, how many white households own guns versus how many Black per capita. I mean, we are way behind just overall gun ownership. So for me, we've not exercised the rights before we're ready to let them go.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
It definitely, it makes sense to me. So and I guess the point of me having this conversation with you is to say one or two things. One, that there is a growing number of African Americans who are purchasing guns. You started a business.
I did.
Training other people around safety. Black women have been the largest consumers and purchasers of guns. And so it's a delicate balance between, but no, you call for, you going back to what Malcolm X said, everybody needs some form of protection. Now someone said, well, why don't you just get a dog? No, you mean more than that, is what you're saying. Right? You mean a firearm. Why don't you say that?
Dog is as fast as my 9mm. That dog is obsolete.
Right. So there's a tension around that, but at the same time, this is an organization. I remember when I saw the pictures of the brothers in Atlanta.
Yeah, NFAC.
And what are they called?
NFAC, Not Fooling Around Coalition.
All right. And that, I had never seen anything like that.
Nobody's ever seen anything like that.
Right. And they wanted you to know that we're not playing.
Yeah.
And in Georgia, they could do that, right? In New York, right. They can't do that in New York, right?
Nah, you can't do that in Florida because it's not certain states are open carry, and
right. Georgia's an open carry state.
Yeah, Georgia.
So where do we go from here, Chavez? We're talking with Chavez Carter. He is the owner of Essential Defense Solutions LLC. They're training gun owners for safety as well as how to use it and for recreation. Where do we go from here?
I think part of it is we have to have an honest conversation of, where we are and where we want to be, right? Mm-hmm. Where we are, and I keep going back to Malcolm X because I'm an avid reader and study of him. It was a speech he did on Goldwater, right? Mm-hmm. When Goldwater was running for president, and Goldwater, for people's recollection, was a stark, out front racist. Okay, mm-hmm. And what Malcolm said was, this person, has the inability to hide his prejudice, right? And they asked him about, him becoming, how did Malcolm X feel about him becoming president? And he said it would be the best thing for the Black community because this person has an inability to hide who he really is. So there's no masking where he wants to go in directions, but it also, we're gonna get there, but
I see you. I see where you're going.
Yeah. But it also, shows, because at the time, people were, it's like, oh, well, Black people are getting rights. You got, the bills are coming, and they're getting, little by little these rights, and like, aren't you guys satisfied enough? And this is in the '60s, right? And, so for a stark racist to become the head of the most powerful nation in the U.S., I mean, in the world, is showing us where we are actually versus where we want to be. I bring that back to 2020.
Talk to me, brother. I knew that was coming.
I'll bring back 2020. And honestly, we had Obama for 8 years, and it ran on hope, on potential, on the best that we could be, right? That was his message.
Yes, we can.
It inspired people to say, you know what? I can do better. I will do better.
Right.
It inspired some of us, right?
Okay.
Donald Trump comes in and shows us it's a litmus of who because you got to have enough people to get there.
Correct.
And shows us where we actually are.
And who we really are.
Right.
And then I'm willing to do anything to stay in here. And to case in point, at the time of our conversation, we're taping this, at the time of our conversation, the Senate, the first thing, I read this as a headline, so I don't know the details of it, but the first thing they did was get back to the business of doing what? Appointing judges.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to know what the legacy of this is going to be, y'all could mess around. I look at some of the frat groups, and they're all in, these Trumpers within our frat groups. But here's the legacy. These conservative judges at all of the circuits, and Mitch, and thank Harry Reid for this, because he went nuclear to get the appointments that he needed for Supreme Court. And then but then once we lost the majority because we messed around, Mitch McConnell said, "Oh, well, not only are we not going to give you a Supreme Court appointment, we're going to use our power to get 2 in, right? And we're also going to fill up all the courts so that some of these cases will never even get there."
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
That's what we are.
So having said all of that, you say what?
I say that it's in 2020. I think, and I harken back to Malcolm X, it's time for us to make an honest assessment of where we are. And there's a reason why we have been stigmatized to purchasing and owning firearms. And I'll tell, there's a book called Negroes with Guns. Okay. It's been one of my favorite books. Hold on, I think I got it right here. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Appreciate that. Again, we're talking to Chavez Carter, Central Defense Solutions, LLC, National African American Gun Owners Association. Go ahead.
But yeah, so it's a book called Negroes with Guns.
Where the book at?
I thought I had it. I got, I keep a bunch of them. This is some of my daily reading.
What's that one called? Africa.
Oh, this is by Leo Weiner. This is Africa and the Discovery of America. This is Voices of Our Ancestors, and this is Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. So
Jawanza Kanjufu. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you keep 3 books at once.
Yeah, well, they right there. So these kind of the last ones that I've been on my kind of my office nightstand and reading. So
you said Negroes with Guns. What did you want to say about that?
So it talks about not only the safety, right, but the empowerment, right? It's harder to oppress an armed individuals. It's harder to get away with certain things when people have the ability to defend themselves, and that goes all the way back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And in that book, they talked about how there would be no nonviolent movement if there weren't Negroes with guns. Because this mostly talked about in North Carolina and Mississippi, how the freedom fighters had to get from town to town, and that wasn't just done through sneaking them through. They had to have individuals there that could get them from town to town. But also,
so that's another piece of the story.
That story that they don't tell us about.
Wow. So the nonviolent movement was supported by people who had guns, is what you're telling me.
With guns, exactly. But that's a history that's never discussed. My dad, of course, my dad graduated in he graduated high school in, before integration in the early 60s. And, I'd always ask him about, how's life and stuff like this. And one example he gave me was boycotts, right? And when we think of boycotts in 2020, we think of, well, you know what, I'm just going to stop using that product, right? But, and where I was from, the way they boycotted was, and it'll get into a deeper discussion, but how, some of the movement has left out Pookie and them, right?
Mm-hmm.
How we think of, when we think of the civilized, nonviolent, initiatives, right?
Right.
Part of, when you think about that, you think about a lot of Black women, church leaders, deacons, blah, 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 but you don't think about the street dudes, right? You don't think about, like, say, Pookie and them. But before, when it was grassroots, Pookie and them was just as involved as the preachers and the deacons. And they would be at the door of Woolworth. They would be in the parking lot of the Five and Dime. They would be in the parking lot or at the storefront of whatever they decide that they were going to boycott, right? And some would be armed. And some, you knew if they didn't have it, it was very close to them, right? I'm talking the baddest brothers in the community. And they're parked up and posted in front of places. And the people that wanted to cross the line was like, oh, well, I just need to get some eggs. Pookie and them were like, well, you're going to have to get some eggs at Miss Martha's because we ain't shopping here, right? So, those aspects of, how, instead of, we all know the talented 10th, right? And that's one way that people, try to get themselves out of oppression. But there were so many other strategies, but those strategies we don't talk about or aren't as popular, or again, don't fit the narrative of the, oh, well, we just pulled on the heartstrings of America, and America's heart opened up, and they listened to Christ, or they, it's like the end of a romantic novel where, okay, well, I've had a change of heart. Some of those changes of hearts were forced, and some of it, but it doesn't fit the romantic narrative of, okay, well, we asked for freedom and people's hearts changed and they gave us freedom because they felt so bad about it, Some of that freedom was, hard fought, and it was hard fought with guns.
Wow. Chavez Carter, we could talk for another 2, 3, 4 hours about a whole lot of stuff. But bottom line is, you're a gun owner, and you're telling folks that that is something that you're saying that they should do. And you teach people how to operate their guns safely through Essential Defense Solutions LLC out of Tampa, Florida. You got your shirt on. It says "I am Dr. Carter." There it is. I am Dr. Carter. So is that your Instagram? Is that how they find you?
Instagram. Everybody can find me at I am Dr. Carter on Instagram. If they're in Florida, you're a Florida resident, we can get you. You got an auntie down. Everybody in New York got an auntie, uncle, cousin in Florida. And
is your training mobile, or you do it in Tampa, or do you go other places within Florida?
So right now it's mostly Florida, but
okay. But specifically Tampa. Do you head up? Do you do Orlando? No.
Just anywhere in Florida. Anywhere in Florida. But also I'm setting the base up in Mississippi as well.
Okay. All right. Great. And then how many brothers and sisters do you have, by the way?
I got one brother.
One brother. Okay. I'm thinking you got 12 brothers and sisters or something like that.
No, that's my dad. My dad has 15 brothers and sisters.
Okay. That's a different. Okay. All right. Right.
And on my mom's side, grandmother is 14 of them. Grandfather is 13 of them.
There you go. All right. There's a list. So you got a lot of uncles. A lot. And so I am Dr. Carter. Follow him. And listen, Chavez, you got a lot of information. And the last thing I'm interested in, just for people, your educational journey, quickly about that and that, if you could.
Well, absolutely. So, growing up, I wanted to be a paleontologist. Growing up, that's, I love dinosaurs. I love history. Even to this day, I've always had an A in science and in history. And I get to junior high, which is pretty pivotal time, and still very impressionable. And they ask me, like, what do you want to do with your life? I want to be a paleontologist. And the counselor there, sometimes small-minded people will project what they can or can't do versus your actual potential. And they was like, well, don't you feel like, by the time you got to school and by the time you got, you get the PhD and blah, 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 don't you think they would have found all the good stuff by then? And to an eighth grader, it's like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Just ruined it for me,
Right.
And then every time I go there, I was like, well, I still want to be a paleontologist. Well, you should do something more practical, right? So, until that time, I was like an A student. And then afterwards, man, my grades went to the dumps. And, because that little spark was kind of gone. So, turned to athletics and very good at athletics, and also played the saxophone. So was lucky enough to get football as well as band scholarships. So Alcorn offered me both. Ended up going to Alcorn State. And
that's in Alabama?
In Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Okay. HBCU, same school Medgar Evers went to.
That's right, right.
Donald Driver, Steve McNair. But I got there as a freshman as a PE major because, if you're doing anything athletic, a lot of times coaches like, just go ahead and do PE. And my dad, along with being the mayor of my city, he taught PE. So I was like, I could be like my dad. He'll retire. I take over his place. And I went to HBCU, and within less than a semester, I was doing really well in biology. I had the highest score in my chemistry class, and one of my professors kind of pulled me out the hallway and said, hey, you're really doing well in my class, but I don't see you on the roll for biology majors. He thought I was a chemistry major. He was going to try to steal me up from the chemistry department. And I told him, I was a PE major. And he was like, well, have you ever thought about doing something else? And I have, but it wasn't anything I was very passionate about. And he ended up telling the chemistry professor and then a couple of other professors. And so the biology department at Alcorn State literally, snatched me up and said, look, man, you got potential to do some really cool things in biology or chemistry, or, you have this down pat, because I think, like I said, I had highest score in one class and the second in the other. So math and science, I had down. So they literally converted me from PE to biology. And
imagine that. I'm from gym to biology.
Yeah. Well, I said it was something that for me it was achievable. Like I said, all due respect to all the people that teach PE, because my dad did 37 years. So I was, but I didn't do it because I love PE. I did it because
that was what he did.
My dad did. If my dad would have been a musician, maybe I would have said I'd just be a musician.
Right.
So, but the faculty there, and I tell people, that's one of the pros of, I feel like, just being honest, if I would have went to USM or Mississippi State or something like that, I would have left a very well-trained, PE major, right? But at Alcorn, being a small HBCU, man, those professors wouldn't let up. Right. And they saw something in me, and they surrounded me with the right material. And then I ended up researching. And once I got into research, man, it wasn't any turning back. And getting a bachelor's, got a master's, and
all at Alcorn State.
Yeah, did Alcorn, and then I did like a dual one at when I was at Penn State.
Right.
So and I did a good bit of my master's work at Penn State, and then left Penn State, and which I thought was the coldest place on earth until I got to Ithaca.
Yes.
And found out that Ithaca was the coldest place on earth until I started hanging out in Syracuse.
And then Buffalo. And Buffalo. And then you really came to the coldest place on earth. And so what's your PhD in?
Immunology and infectious diseases.
That's right. We just said that. What I mean is, what I meant to say, what was your theory? What was your hypothesis? What was your study?
Well, I'll back up a little further than that. Was leaving Alcorn State, I got accepted to pharmacy schools. I actually got accepted to pharmacy schools. I got accepted to grad schools as well as chiropractic school because I was a good test taker. So I just took the MCAT, I took PCAT, I took GRE. I just took it all just to make sure that when I like options. So that's like I said, even when I was going from high school to college, I had multiple scholarships in multiple areas because I like pick my options and make a choice on where do I go from here. So after undergrad, I did the same thing, and I decided, well, I'm going to go to pharmacy school because, you know, pharmacists, they make a good living. You know, it doesn't seem like something that I couldn't do. And, you know, I got to the school I wanted to go to. And that was in May of 2006. And literally 2 weeks later, we found out that my father was terminally ill with renal cell carcinoma. So I ended up deferring pharmacy school because we found out stage 4. So they only gave him 3 months, and he ended up making it to September. Well, in between September or May and September, I may have read at least 100 papers on immunology, 100 papers on cancer research, on, you know, because as somebody with a biology degree, I'm like, why don't I know anything about cancer? You know, I knew the general basis, right? But why do I know, you know, for somebody that my father was someone that I'd never seen have a cigarette. You know, I seen him have a sip of a beer at my grandmother's funeral with his brothers, you know, and that's it. You know, in my entire life, exercise was in just as good a shape as I was. Right. Matter of fact, you know, when he was losing weight, he was on a diet because he switched to being a vegetarian.
Right.
So, and there are only 3 vegetarians in Mississippi. You know, food too good, man. Right. He was living the healthiest lifestyle you can as a black man, you know, in the area. So how did he get cancer? So that question, you know, ate at me. You know, I ended up getting into the biology program, master's at Alcorn, and then went on to Penn State and just pursued cancer research and immunology. And the thing about a PhD is you don't necessarily go in, like I went in saying I want to do, you know, research on renal cell carcinoma, and that's it, right? That's not how grad school works. As a PhD, and especially in the sciences, your thesis is based on A, which lab has availability to take a grad student, and B, what projects that those availabilities have, right? So you can come in there saying, yeah, I want to work on X, Y, and Z, but in a lot of cases, it doesn't work like that. Right. So I ended up getting on a project looking at T cells and looking at, if you manipulate, you know, certain aspects of that T cells, can you get them to, you know, attack a disease a certain way? And it was pretty novel research. And because of that, I was able to leverage that into a career in pharmaceutics, because the thing about any drug is if you can understand how a disease works and the intricacies of how the disease works, it makes you understand the pharmaceutical aspect that much more. And then I'm customer facing. So I talk to a lot of doctors. I talk to a lot of clinicians, people that are over residency programs, people that are over research institutions. And because I have a career in research, when they have an idea that is novel and an idea that's we can kind of fund and kind of really explore, my background in research makes it, you know, a little easier for me to identify projects that are that we can then invest in and move forward into, you know, looking at that treatment.
Great. Well, you have an exciting career, some outstanding work that you're doing. Dr. Chavez Carter.
Just from 9 to 5.
Yeah, I hear that. He's the owner of Essential Defense Solutions LLC, but also a brother who is highly educated and really doing some great work out here. Keep up the good work, Frat. And we want to let people know I am Dr. Carter. Follow that brother on Instagram, and we look forward to hearing more from you, bro.
Hey, man, you ever need me again, give me a call, man. I love the conversation. It's always good to, you know, catch up with you, man. And I love what you're doing, man, and how you keeping people looped in, you know. And like I said, some of these conversations aren't the easiest conversations, but, man, they need to be had, because I tell folks, if you're in a room full of everybody that agrees with you and sees the world the way you do, you're in a room that's not growing. So, you know, you need people to challenge, even myself, you know, I need people to, you know, sharpen me up, you know, and I try to do the same. Is let's have some of these challenging conversations and let's get out of some of this. Because, you know, when people think of the Black community, they think of this, you know, this monolith of everybody moves and does the exact same way. And man, so much diversity in our communities and the way we handle situations. And, right now we out here trying to push this information and, learn from each other and each other's perspective and experience.
The organization is NAAGA.com.
Yep, NAGA, National African American Gun Association.
There's a couple of other groups as well, but that's the one you're a member of.
There are. So yeah, I'm a part of that one. And I tell people, choose one that works for you, because we have local chapters in Tampa, and NAGA is it's kind of like the the equivalent of the NRA.
Right.
It's the national chapter, but they have Black Gun Owners Association. You have a couple of different national Black Gun Owners Associations.
Right. You got
find one that's in your community, or I actually, because I didn't know Tampa had one, I called NAGA. I was like, man, I want to start a gun club. They're like, oh, you already got one there, and they're doing some really cool things. So I just fortunate enough to hop on with these guys, and we have fun on the weekends.
I hear that. All right, Inspiration for the Nation. Glad to talk to Chavez Carter. Inspiration for the Nation. Yo.